All right. We are live. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope everybody is having a great day so far. Hey, it's been a beautiful one. It's been a little cold, but other than that, it has been a wonderful day. So, my phone does this. I don't know what it is, but every Tuesday at 7 p.m. when I'm busy, my phone decides to start dinging. So, let me turn it off so I don't interrupt everybody and interrupt the show. So, all right, it's on vibrate now. So, welcome to the Ladies Lounge. I'm your host, Wonder Lowe. Uh, I am excited about tonight. I'm excited about this whole year. It has been a year of surprises, and it's been a year of ups, downs, sideways, crossways, verticals, horizontals, checks, pass, polka dots, you name it. It's been a year of all of that. But guess what? We are here, and it is the 29th day of December of 2020. We're almost out of this thing, y'all. We're almost out. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed. We're going to keep praying. We're going to make it out of this year. So let's get housekeeping stuff out of the way first. If you haven't already liked our page, please go over right now to the Ladies Lounge and click on that like button. And let me just say this. Thank you for the 400 plus likes that we got this year. And thank you for the over 400 followers, that people that tune into the show on a weekly basis and that support and that send a message every now and then, or that see me at Walmart and say, hey, girl, good show, good job. I appreciate every last bit of it. It is what makes me want to do this every week. It's what keeps me looking for good folks to be guests and to keep this thing going. So thank you all so much for doing that. While you're at it, also click on the YouTube, go over to YouTube and find the Ladies Lounge Wonder Lowe YouTube and subscribe to that page. There's a little bitty bell on there. Click on that bell so that every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification so you can jump in and join the show. So that's all the housekeeping stuff. I don't have a whole bunch of it, but that's what we do for housekeeping. But I want to tell you this. Going into 2021, my word for the whole year is going to be growth. So whatever I'm growing, whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm getting better at, I want to help other people do the same thing. So please support me. I'm going to support you. We're going to grow together. We're going to do this. We're going to make 2021, we're going to make 2020 a distant memory. We want to push it back. But we're going to go into 21 with hope and with faith and with a lot of prayer. And we're going to go into it with a mind of growth. So I want to support you. I want you to support me. So make sure that you click those like buttons, those follow buttons, click the bells for the notifications so that we can keep up with each other. Now, by show of hands, who is glad that Christmas 2020 is over? Yeah, you're right. Over too. Yeah. I am. This has been a year again of firsts, some good firsts and some bad firsts. And I will say for my family, it was a year of one big bad first. We lost my oldest brother November 20th, right before Thanksgiving. So we immediately had our first Thanksgiving and our first Christmas without him. And that has been very hard on me. It's been very hard on his son. It's been very hard on our family. And I know that there are other families out there that are dealing with that same situation. So God bless you. Please understand and know that you're always in our thoughts and our prayers, because this time of year or any time of the year, all year long, we've suffered losses. People have been losing family members to COVID. You've been losing family members to just different things. So not just around the holidays has it been tough. It's just been tough all year. So just know that you're always in our thoughts and our prayers, and that we're going to continue to keep everybody in our thoughts and prayers, because loss is a loss whenever it is, and all of them are going to feel bad. So we'll continue to keep you in our prayers for that. So y'all, last show of the year, and I wanted to do a review of 2020. Now, somebody's going, oh, no, heck no. We don't want to look at 2020 anymore. We want to just get rid of it and keep it moving. But I think it's necessary that we reflect sometimes on the things that have happened, because aside from all of the negative things or the things that we perceive have not been as good in 2020, there have been some wonderful things to come out of 2020. People have made history. Things have happened that are going to put us in a totally different place in 21. So even though we have some things that we got to talk about 2020 that's not so good, we have a lot of things that happen in 2020 that are really good. So we want to make sure that we keep that in mind as we go through the show tonight. So let me introduce my guests. Now, let me tell you something. These are three of my most favorite people. Y'all don't know that, but y'all are on my list. Y'all are some of my favorite people, and I really enjoyed it whenever you all come on because I love people that talk. And if you know, I talk a lot. I tell people I'm from the country. We know how to talk. We don't know how to do nothing else. So I like y'all because y'all know how to talk as much as I do. So we ought to have a really good, lively conversation tonight. So we go through a little brief introduction. Because some of you all are going to know these folks. They've been on before. They're not strangers to any of us. But I just want to give you just a tiny bit of background. So we have, and I love this, Reverend Doctor Barbara Latoison is the senior pastor of Grace Temple AME Zion Church in Little Rock, and she recently became the staff chaplain at UAMS, or the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. So welcome. We have Mrs. Martie North Hamilton. That makes you sound so sophisticated. She is a senior vice president, director of community development (CRA) at Simmons Bank in Little Rock. She is also the owner and creator of System Critical, which we're going to have you tell us about that a little bit. So, welcome again, Ms. Martie. And man, this is my road dog. This is my person. If I say at 12 o'clock, dude, can you be on? Give me 5 minutes. He coming. Brian Rodgers is the community liaison for the Mosaic Temples Cultural Center in Little Rock. And I call him my resident historian of everything. Because pretty much anything I want to know about something, he knows something about it. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you coming on again tonight because y'all, we got a lot of stuff to talk about for 2020. So do you all want to add anything to your intro or tell anybody anything else about yourself before we get into our discussion? Y'all good?
I would just say that I'm going to say something.
Go ahead.
I would say that I'm glad somebody likes me. So thank you, Wanda, for speaking so highly of me. Thank you so much.
No, no problem. You my buddy. I told you that's what I know. If I call somebody at the last minute and say, dude, I need somebody to give 5 minutes, I'll be ready. So I appreciate that. All right, y'all. Let's just dive into this thing. And we might as well go into the deep end first. So one of the biggest topics of this year, of 2020, of course, has been COVID-19 and pandemic. Y'all just tear into it. I don't care I don't really care where you start. Just tell me your thoughts, talk about how you feel it's been handled. We found out about it, the beginning of March of this year? And
no, January.
Right. Go ahead.
Well, we knew that it existed in December. Mm-hmm. I remember hearing about the first few cases in Wuhan, China, back in December. And I think one of the things that it's done for us in America, it's made us realize that, one, the world does not revolve around America. And two, that we are not alone in the world. Things that happen in Asia and Europe and Africa affect us whether we want to believe that or not. I tend to look, as a historian, I tend to look at things from a historical perspective. And one of the things that I started to see creep up into the American psyche again was the idea of isolationism. Is that if we just stay to ourselves and we don't get involved in what's going on around the world, that those things won't affect us. But, COVID-19 has shown us that that is not true, that we are a part of a global community and we have to act as if we're a part of a global community, not only with health crises, but global warming, with trade, with mutual defense, and with even the way that we behave as a community affects the rest of the world. And so it's important. I think that the coronavirus has made us realize that that's real again. And every so often, we slip back into that isolationism and something brings us out of it. It was World War II in the 1940s, and it was it was the nuclear crisis in the early 80s with the Soviet Union. And I think now it's the virus. We realize that we're part of a bigger community.
Oh, that was so rich. I will say this: novel viruses. There are a bunch of them.
Yes.
We haven't discovered all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that COVID-19 is new, that's a wrong framing, right? We became aware of this particular novel virus. It's been here.
Yep.
And this idea that it started on this date or that date is ridiculous. It's the dates in which we discovered it, in which we could put a name around it. There's so many other viruses we don't know yet. We don't have the names that are with us. So I have been laughing at the media at this new strain, right? Viruses mutate all the time. That's what viruses do. And all of a sudden, has the new strain hit America? I said, as soon as you figured it out, we already got Lord knows how much of it here. Stop it. But I think one of the opportunities within this virus to show us so many things about ourselves, right? We always looked at all of those deadly viruses as being somebody else's issue. Keep it at someone else's shore. We don't get this in America. The arrogance of Americans, right? We can look at Ebola and other diseases and say, oh, we don't get that over here. That happens to those people over there.
Exactly.
But this showed us we are equally human like everyone else on the planet. And it is a global society, as Brian pointed out. Planes go to everywhere and come into this country. Therefore, everything is moving here. One of the funny things, funny not in a comical, but funny in an ironic, is the timing of this one, right? I think that one makes this one so particularly intriguing. We've been struggling with the election of 2016 and who our country is and what our country wants to be. And then we get slammed with another odd transition with this pandemic, which has changed our world forever. And I'll hush and let the good Reverend Doctors get in on this because Wonder, I can go.
I know you can go.
Well, Brian talked about isolationism, and you're talking about just the fact that we are a global community, and that the novel viruses are not new, and they're not anything that we can control. But I think one of the things that this has showed us is the ignorance of America.
Yes. Yes.
The total ignorance. The thought that we are superior to other countries is number one. Number two, the ignorance to think that we can control something, which we really can't. I mean, this virus is not controllable by us. And then the ignorance to think that, well, it's not going to affect us, because that was the attitude of leadership when this initially hit our country. Had we done some proactive things, then I think that we would be in a totally different place. And then when we look at local government or state government, we didn't do all the things that we could have done in order to be able to protect people. Mandating face masks
should have been a day one thing.
That should have been a day one thing. And opening back up as soon as we did. I mean, our priorities of economics over people's lives shows where our values are. And our values are not in dealing with people and their lives, their livelihood. Yes. Well, some people's livelihood, but the dealing with lives and valuing what's matter, our leadership has indicated that that's not important to them.
Well, Martie, you made me think about something when you talked about how, though, that's their virus. Remember, that's the way Americans reacted when HIV became a thing. That's their thing, it doesn't affect us. And also, I kind of look at it like with every cloud, there's a silver lining, right? And I think that silver lining is it's shining a light on the inequality that existed in this country for years that we all knew about, right? We knew about the disparities in education and healthcare and economics, but now everyone else is starting to see it, starting to see how these things affect people, right? You hear them talking about all the time about how because of the virus, children are falling behind in education. Our children have been falling behind. We've never had the same benefits that other communities have had. And so I think that with the virus, it's starting to shine a light on that because it's not just Black people that are suffering now, right? It's people of all stripes that are beginning to suffer because people can't go to work and kids can't go to school. And now people are saying, well, because kids can't go to school, now parents can't go to work and parents have to go to work because now we need somebody who's going to watch our kids. And what about our communities who've had latchkey kids for generations? Because people had to work and not just one job, but 2 and 3 jobs. When I was growing up, my mom had 2 jobs. You know, we saw my mom before we went to school and before we went to bed.
Wow.
And so those things are now being laid bare for the entire country to see. Absolutely. And I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. Go ahead.
We were talking about 2020 vision, and see, I don't do New Year's resolutions. I learned a long time ago not to do that. No. But, you know, different people were doing vision boards and, you know, this new decade and entry and all the promise that it had. And I was teasingly, but I really meant what I said. You got to be real careful with your word choices that you present before the Heavenly Father, right? Because how it comes back to you may not look like, especially initially, the way you envisioned it, right? So 2020 vision, I just kept hearing that everywhere. It's 2020 vision. Well, a lot of things have happened this year, as Brian had pointed out and alluded to, that put a spotlight, right, on a variety of things. The pandemic, issues with relationship with the police. We've had publicized, we have witnessed executions live, right? Technology has advanced because of the pandemic at a rate, I think they said in 6 months, we advanced 5 years worth forward. Wow. Because we've had to. We have learned the vulnerabilities on our healthcare community. And I mean that beyond just frontline healthcare workers, which are very important. But when you look at the entire allied health structure right now, for example, if you are in an area that is trying to give vaccinations to those who are willing to take the vaccination, once they open a vial, they have a window in which they have got to use all of it. And if people don't show up, all of a sudden they're scrambling to find any willing person who they can use so the vaccine doesn't go to waste, because the production timeline is not keeping up with the pace that was sold, because people don't understand supply chain logistics and management, right? Our food supply, people do not understand we have 2 different systems. They don't talk to each other. They were never designed to talk to each other. We have a pandemic, and now it's not a shortage of food. We have an abundance of food in this country. The ability to shift and direct and get things to people, we don't have that really worked out because it wasn't part of the design. But people think we're going to snap our fingers and make sudden shifts happen. This 2020 is allowing us to see a lot of things in a totally different way. Childcare, daycare, who is essential, right? What does that even mean to be an essential worker? Here in America, this idea of our country is built on workers, right? You work hard. If you don't work hard, we try to put you in a certain box, right? You are a drain on the society. So this idea of working has now been called into question, but it's already had tensions placed on it based upon wage disparity, income inequalities, and a whole bunch of other things that we've known about, but we've been putting back here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, 2020 vision has covered everything going on in our society that we have had the luxury of not being aware of or ignoring. It has and continues to put a spotlight on it all.
And see, that's what I kind of feel like. This has been a year of exposure and revelation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All of the things that we've covered and we pretended that didn't exist in America have been, like you said earlier, they've been laid bare. Everything from the inequality in education to the inequality in healthcare. You know, I read this, I don't know, everybody's probably seen the story of the doctor who passed a couple of days ago.
Yes.
In the hospital. And you're going, you would think not just because she's a doctor that she would have gotten better treatment, but for things to go to the extent that she had to publicize while she's sick, here's what's going on while I'm in the hospital. I had a cousin a couple of months ago who had COVID and it was in the hospital, and she went live and she told what was happening. Well, guess what? I think after I looked at her video, I watched about 5 or 6 more different ones of people saying, here's what's really happening. Here's why people are dying in the hospital. Here's where we're not getting the health care that we need. Here's where, you know, people are sitting in the hallway or just laying in the bed, or nobody's been in a couple of days, or, you know, I hadn't seen a doctor, or I hadn't got any treatment, or I'm being treated for one thing but not the other. So I think that 2020 has been that year where all these things, we knew that they were happening. We've always known that they were happening. I just think now everybody else knows they're happening too. So going forward, the question would be, what are we going to do about it? You know, like you said, we did witness a public execution. We've seen that. We've seen the police brutality. We saw the riots. We saw we saw all of that stuff. This year has been one of those years that if you come out of this year and you don't have PTSD, you don't have anxiety disorder, you don't have some kind of mental issue going on, man, you strong. Because we have been bombarded with things that I guess you would say in a normal year, we wouldn't see. We have been traumatized. Yeah. I don't know about y'all, but I actually literally catch myself not watching the news anymore, or not wanting to hear anything else about an election, or not wanting to hear anything else about violence, or just trying to block all those things out. So this year, with even starting with COVID and the pandemic and all the other things and the isolation part of it. You know, we did a show a couple months ago about being in quarantine. How does that affect your mental health? You have people who were perfectly healthy mentally before this, who are going to be in therapy for years to come after this, that might be already in therapy now, because 2020, for lack of a better way of putting it, has literally kicked our butts.
Yeah.
It has done some things to some people. It's going to take a minute for us to recover from it. So, because we got a bunch of them, so I want to make sure we hit everything, y'all. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about this year, but I definitely want to make sure we spend some time talking about COVID and the pandemic. Now, here's what I want to ask you, and y'all can go around and say, what do you see going forward? How do you see us dealing with the rest of this going forward? We have a vaccine, or there are vaccines, whatever is out there. I don't trust none of it. That's just me. But we have a vaccine. But what do you all see going forward? How do you think this is gonna, you know, how it's gonna go into 21? What is 21 gonna look like when we're still dealing with this pandemic?
Well, UAMS has been doing the projections on the trends of how COVID is going to act here in Arkansas. And they are predicting or projecting that it's going to be April before the peak hits.
Wow.
So we are not out of the woods on this. We have to deal with whether or not people are going to take the vaccine once it's available. I mean, it's widely available. We have to deal with whether or not we're going to use some common sense and do the things that we know that will mitigate this. We're going to have to deal with the fact that there are people who are already compromised, who are going to be dealing with the effects of this well into 2020, 2021, just because of how COVID impacts the body, because we don't know what the residuals are going to be from even having had the virus itself.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are in the recovery part, they're still having trouble. They're
Yes.
still having a lot of pain. They're still having breathing problems. So you're right. You don't know how much longer down the line people are still going to suffer with this. Go ahead, Martie.
That was a mouthful of wisdom. So this novel virus, and how many versions of strains that'll be in existence by then, I don't see us coming or starting to see the light until end of June, right?
Yeah.
And that is with the assumption that all of the individuals who are willing to take the vaccine, the production levels of the vaccine gets up to, you get to a certain percentage level, right? You're never going to get to 100% unless, here's the dirty little thing, EEOC, our equal employment, came out with and stood behind industry and said that employers will have the ability to require their employees to get vaccinated as a condition of work. Arkansas is an at-will state as it is, right? So the question becomes, at what point will employers start pulling that trigger and enforcing that, right? Right now, it's not being pulled. But conversations are being had. Right? So at some point, that's going to become an issue, depending upon how this pandemic continues to progress, and how well the supply of the vaccines are readily made available. So you've got that competing interest there going on. Because remember, Americans, we work. So, and the ability to say, hey, I understand your particular community or culture is very apprehensive of taking a vaccine that we have no idea what the long-term effects are. I get that. However, we're going to need you to work. That is going to cause a lot of, turmoil with various cultures as to whether or not, and at what point do you feel like you have no choice? I have a lot of skin folks who are in the front lines that couldn't get vaccinated fast enough, right? All over the country, couldn't get back. But I understand that, and I respect that. I know others who there's no way they're going to do it. I know that, and I respect that extreme as well. I think we're going to continue to see advances in technology as a result of we have no choice. I think how we look at work is going to continue to evolve. I think how we think of communities is going to also evolve as well. I think education from a K through 12 perspective, this is going to be like in 57. I think this is going to be a lost year. The academic year for across the board, because I don't think anyone has been served well.
No.
And you go into college, no one has been served well. And we're going to have to figure out, and we needed to had a different conversation about education anyway. I think this is really going to force us to look at that. And then our contract for public safety, I think we're going to have a lot more conversations. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have a whole lot more headlines.
Yes.
Before we can see meaningful change nationwide. But those are some of the big themes. There are some positives. Don't be all negative, Nelly, but I just wanted to get those major themes out.
I saw a report today that said that at the rate we're going, we can vaccinate about 100 million people per day.
Wow.
And each person will need 2.
It can't be 100 million.
No, I'm sorry, 1 million.
Yeah, it's not 100 million.
I'm sorry, 1 million. 1 million, right? So each person will need 2 vaccinations. So that will be almost 700 million vaccinations. Imagine how long that's going to take.
Decades.
Wow.
At this rate, decades.
And we have to have 70% of our population vaccinated in order to control it. So
I thought that number had been increased to like 85 at this point.
oh wow.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a high number. And so thinking about it, what you said, Martie, about June, I would be surprised if 2021 wasn't a lost year also.
Yeah.
I think so we're getting ready to start 2021 in 3 days. Vaccines are still not readily available.
Yeah.
And thinking about making the adjustment back to what we once considered normal life is going to take some time too.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm sorry, even after I get vaccinated, I'm not going to just jump back out there because from everything that I've heard, the vaccine doesn't prevent you from catching the virus. It just prevents it from being bad. Just like the flu vaccine, right?
Right.
You get the flu vaccine, you can still get the flu. I took the flu vaccine last year, and they happened to be giving, I think it was flu vaccine A last year, and
You got A.
and flu B was the one that was going around.
Yeah.
So I mean, we are in a situation where we're going to have to reevaluate what normal was. We're going to have to reevaluate how we live life, and I just don't know if the powers that be are ready to do that.
No.
I don't think we go to the previous normal, right?
Yeah.
I think that was then, and this is how we go forward.
Yeah.
So I don't even think of returning to the previous normal. We're never going to live like that again.
No.
However, I'm trying to be optimistic that in changing leadership at the top, and we can get in, call in the powers and use the forces that we have to actually federalize production, right? Which has not happened to this day. That's one of the reasons why I was trying to say on a good end, once that goes into effect, production can increase. I think PPE supplies and others, once the lever is finally pulled, that will help. But it's also going to take leadership at state level and local level, because as was stated earlier, we should have shut down in January, and we should have stayed shut down. Everybody stayed at home from January through March, right? But we didn't do that. And because we didn't do that, you're not going to get the genie back in the bottle. It's not possible. So now is how do we navigate and move forward at the same time? So hopefully with the Defense Production Act powers being pulled, that will help. I think the rate of vaccinations will go up. We're going to kind of slush along here until at least February on that level, because January 20th can't get hit fast enough. That's the only reason I was optimistic with that time. Otherwise, you're right. 2021 is going to be equally as tough, if not tougher than 2020.
I mean, we know what works, right? We just look at New Zealand. Right. Look at New Zealand. We know what works. It's just
we always know what works.
And here I go with my historian hat again. It's just that Americans have been sold this idea of rugged individualism for so long.
Yes.
Now they think nobody can tell them anything, when that's always been a lie, right? The government has always been able to tell us what to do. And for people who are running around with their guns in case of a tyrannical government, you can never defeat the government. They have all the weapons. I used to have these conversations with people all the time about why didn't the enslaved people revolt? I'm like, okay, number one, there was revolutions. And number two, we've consistently been about 14% of the population. They would wipe us out. That's not a war we can win. Right. We have to get in the system and try to change the system from the inside, not trying to overthrow the system.
Exactly. That's a good segue. Let's go into, because I want to make sure we get these other topics in, but let's go into, and Martie kind of alluded to it. I call it the never ending election, because it's just never ending. 2020 was an election year, and it just seems like it's still an election year. Even after the election, even after everything is over, we still have a person who shall remain nameless, who has not quite accepted what happened with the election, but we know the rest of the world that's got a little bit of sense, we've kind of accepted it, and now we're ready. Like you said, we can't wait for January 21st to get here. So let's talk about a little bit about this never-ending election, and what is this? Because this year's been a year of like political and social things have history. We talked a little bit about the police brutality and some about, we'll talk about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and some of those things in just a second. But let's talk about this election that never seems to go away. That even after we've casted our votes and we've been told who the winner is, we still talk about who the winner is. What do you see happening? Let's just talk. I don't care where you start on this one. Let's start with how do you think this election has changed us? Let's start there.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be quiet.
Go ahead. I think that this political election has cemented the divisiveness that has always been underground in America. But I think that not only did it expose it, but I think that there have been some hard lines drawn that it's going to be difficult to reconcile, not only just in the political realm, but we're looking at how divisive even the church is right now around these issues. And it's going to be hard to reconcile. It is going to be hard to reconcile unless we do some very intentional things in order to get past it. But when you add to the divisiveness a spirit of ignorance, it's hard. It's hard to argue with an ignorant person to get them to understand that they're ignorant and to change their perspective. Mm-hmm. And then you add to it those persons who are benefiting from it, that continues to fuel the flame. I think we're going to be dealing with this for a while.
There's three themes. There are three themes to taking from what you just said. Number one, America needs a civics lesson.
Yes, it does.
I don't know when civics left public education, but it needs to come back and it needs to be taught year after year after year after year, because people really don't know how elections work, even when you look at the local level going up to national. Mm-hmm. Joseph Biden is the winner.
Yes, he
will be the 46th president of the United States. He's won this election for all intent and purposes 3 times. Okay. He's about to win it a 4th. So we can be done with this. So when people are like, what does she mean by that? We had election night. We've had all the fighting and the lawsuits that were lost. We've had the Electoral College. Mm-hmm. Right? And we're going to have the swearing in. And in between then, we've had acknowledgments by everybody else around the world. That's the president. That's president-elect.
Don't forget the recounts.
Right, all of that. So at the end of the day, he's going to have won 4 times.
Yep, basically.
He won. But most people don't know the mechanics.
Right.
The other challenge that you had brought up, in addition to that, is echo chambers. One of the things that I think was really, really sad, and how public policy is so important, when the FCC rules changed back late 80s, early 90s, that allowed commentary and not news reporting.
Yes.
And to come into play. Because I don't know if everyone, everybody's on this call old enough to remember back when you had to have opposing views.
Yes.
At the same time, you couldn't just go off on a narrative and a tangent and not have a balance. When that FCC rule changed, that set up echo chambers, right? Yeah. So now we have people who don't know anything other than echo chambers. So we have a very hard time. And then we have the internet. So we used to have to go to the library and encyclopedias. You had to really search for stuff. Now we have information, incorrect, whatever, to back up whatever you need to hear, their personalities and sources to quote. And so we get in an echo chamber, which prevents us from really learning and growing. Earlier, the incorrect statement was that said, if we would use common sense. My great-grandmother taught me a long time ago, there is no such thing. Sense, what makes sense to you don't make sense to someone else. Therefore, it is not common. So in this world of individualism, that's a privilege, right? Everybody don't get to be individuals here in this country. That in and of itself is a privilege. We are ate up with my rights. You're infringing upon my rights, and all kinds of ignorance that is going to hinder the progress in which the speed of progress that we can make, because we're always going to have this percentage of people who are going to be in this outer periphery. But the Biden-Harris administration is going to be a transition administration.
Yes.
So, and if you watch, Brian, I'm going to serve this up to you from a historic perspective. In modern history, Democrats come behind the Republicans in cleanup mode.
So thank you, Martie. There are a couple of points that I want to make. First, the FCC not only allowed commentary, but they also allowed individual corporations to own larger portions of the media market. And so that's how you get a Sinclair media conglomerate owning stations in every city in the country, and their perspective is the perspective. We also lost our investigative journalism when newspapers started to go, when individual city newspapers started to go away.
Yes.
For instance, in Little Rock, when we lost 2 newspapers, there's only one perspective now. And in addition to that, the church has always been divided, right? So there's always been the black church and the white church. And when the media speaks of the church, they're talking about the white church. And even within the white church, there's 2 branches of the white church. And that was laid bare with the Civil War. Denominations split over slavery. It's how you get the Southern Baptists. There was once upon a time, there was a Southern Methodist. And so their perspectives have always been different and always will be different. Not even to go into American Christianity as a whole and how it has a completely different focus than Christianity worldwide. Or even the original version of Christianity that was practiced by Paul and those who came after him. Because we don't even practice the Christianity that Paul practiced. And he didn't practice the version of the religion that Jesus and the apostles practiced. So, when people say that, I had a religious studies instructor who asked us on our final question, there was one question. If Jesus returned today, would he recognize Christianity? Why or why not? That's it. That's a 10-page paper right there. But I think that there are so many issues. And I think, Martie, you're right. It all starts with civics. People don't understand how the government works. They don't understand that the president does not have a lot of domestic power. And so we are stuck in a country with an uninformed electorate, an uneducated electorate, and politicians who recognize that and play on that.
A couple of different things you just said. Going back to the investigative research part of it. One of the things I think has aggravated me to no end is people throwing out these stats. Number one, you got the stats from a Facebook post. Number two, the Facebook post had everything in it wrong down to the misspellings and everything else. But you took it as to be, this is what actually happened. In 5 minutes or less, if you are serious about learning about what is really going on, you can Google it. and there are credible sources that you can get the information from. That's the first thing. The second thing, and I totally agree with Martie on the civics part. We did, I think, 3 shows this year about the election, about voting, about all of this stuff. And to hear people say, I'm still not going to vote, that's one. To say, I'm going to vote, well, we had this millennial thing going on with some people. Well, we're just going to not vote for this one because this party has never done anything for us. This party has never done anything for us. Well, what do you think this other party is going to do for you? So it was this big argument about, well, I'm not going to vote Democratic because they've never done anything for us. We're going to vote for Republican. Okay, so let me get this straight. None of these were the best candidates. Let's be really clear about that. Nothing on the ballot was the best that we could offer or that we had, but you had to do something. So you had a lot of misinformation about who stood for what. This one doesn't stand for this. I'm going to vote. My husband works with some folks that said they were voting for the person who did not win the election because he was against abortion and he was against immigration. Well, that gets to be confusing, especially when you're the person that he's actually against. And I didn't understand that. He's building a wall to keep your relatives out.
I can address that, Wonder.
To keep you out. But you're going to vote for him because he's against abortion and immigration. So, okay, make that make sense is what one of my favorite TikTokers say. Make that make sense to me. Because it doesn't make sense.
I can actually make that make sense. And if you read the book Forgotten Americans, which I'm starting to tear into, it addresses part of that ideology that you're just talking about. And I think that's where the American public is, how do I say, we're disserved. Even if I may just made that word up, it's a disservice to us. And I think it's because we think of political parties too narrowly and we listen to incomplete narratives over and over and over. The repetition, that's kind of that evil brilliance thing. And then it becomes fact, even though it is not true in our brains, it becomes fact. Republicans nor Democrats are singularly anything.
Right.
And one thing that I found really interesting thus far in the book is this notion of ideology. So the Forgotten American is talking about individuals 24 to 64, not college educated, earning less than $75,000 a year, and it's roughly about 38% of the country. Okay, when you look at politics, I'm gonna go real political on you. You're really only campaigning for about 8% of the population.
Okay.
That's it. Because they know that there are those who vote, 42% are going to vote for every Democratic candidate. They don't care what the name is associated with it. On the other side, another 42% is going to vote for every Republican, no matter whose name on it. You're really after the group in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the issue. That population shifts, and we like to call them undecided. They're really not undecided. They flip. They don't consistently vote one way or another. I'm one of those people. But I do it from an educated perspective. I don't automatically vote all Democrat either. One of the other little dirty secrets in local elections, where we've got a lot to do in civics, is under voting, right? So people skip races. So they will vote in certain races and skip a whole bunch of other races. And that has harm as well, because people don't know. I can't tell you the number of highly educated professional people that I knew who skipped the judicial races because they were like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know which one to vote for. I don't understand none of this.
5 minutes of research and you'll know this stuff. That's what I'm saying. I'm tired of lazy folks.
Well, and so part of that is, once again, making the connection. And I think both political parties do a horrible job at actually connecting to the electorate, right? They do a lot in sound bites. They bombard us with a whole bunch of junk in our mailboxes. They torment us in our texts. And you almost hide from your own phone leading up to it, because I'm like, I'm not giving out one more dime. I'm not answering not a single number. I don't know. I can't handle it no more. Y'all are driving me nuts. That's not effective. And we really don't teach, and we're not listening. I have debates with my friends on the coast from the major cities all the time. I'm like, the Electoral College will not be abolished. I need everybody to let the dream go. Because the middle of the country is never going to allow that.
No.
Because if you did that, there's only 4 areas in the country that would get all the attention. So that's not going to happen, right? So let's speak in reality. Our bigger issue is for people to get meaningful, correct information, because they're not going to do the homework that you're talking about, Wonder. That's not going to happen. So how do we get and take where we are right now and turn it into something good? I think that's the overriding message of 2020. How do we take where we are right now and turn that into something good? First of all, we got to stop demonizing political parties, because it just is not purely one thing or another. We have seen the current occupant, number 45, is not a Republican.
Right.
So first of all, he's not one of them either. He is of neither party. He ran as a Republican, just like Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. But when it comes time to run for president, he jumps to the political party that has the infrastructure in this country, which would be the Democratic Party. He is an independent. He is not a Democrat. So the exploitation and misunderstanding and miseducation around political parties is a problem here. But how do we start tearing this down and moving in a way that is actually productive? When we're talking about races, it's going to require a civics, constant civics education, and then helping people to understand and listen to those individuals. When we're talking about the Hispanic Latinx community, ma'am, abortion is a non-starter, right? It's a non-starter for the older generations. They're not going to vote for a candidate who does not clearly come out and say, I am pro-life, or which is really pro-birth. It's not pro-life, it's pro-birth.
Right.
The secondary thing about immigration, believe it or not, depending upon which country you originate from, oh yes, ma'am, a lot of them have a lot of issues with illegal immigration, because it's very hard to immigrate here. A lot of people paid a lot of money, put in a lot of years to get their legal status, and they are highly bothered by anyone breaking line and getting benefits that they weren't able to access because they went through it the right way. It can take you up to 20 years to get your citizen status. If you don't have, if you're poor, don't have connections, and and don't know the process, it's a very long and hard journey. But yes, there's a whole community that firmly believes that no, they should be sent back home because they did not go through the process that I went through. And if I had to go through this process, so should they. And then, like I said, when you get into the different nations, Cubans versus Mexicans versus this versus that, honey, they are not one group. They are not one group, just like Black folks ain't one group. They are definitely not one group. But a lot of sentiment that I hear across the country is based on that. Those who went through the process feel like everyone else should go through the process, and they should not be allowed to jump and do something different. They're against amnesty. They're against a whole bunch of stuff. You'd be amazed.
Thank you. So are you because during this year, one of the things that I'm going to do with the show is we're going to have education shows. And it's going to be purely about teaching people about voting, teaching people about, we talked a lot, Terry Hollingsworth was on, and we talked a lot about how we cannot forsake the local elections. And I hear a lot of people say, I voted in every presidential election. Okay, well, how many times did you vote for the school board president? I didn't. How many times did you vote for your senator or your representatives or your congressman or your alderman or your city directors or your mayor? I didn't. And they're not understanding that you have to do each level. Each level has to be addressed. You have to be cognizant of what number one, what's going on. And I agree totally when you start just watching the political ads and just that cannot be your guide to voting. It just cannot be, because they're meant to mislead. They purposely say misleading things. And if you have one candidate put down information on the other candidate, it's is meant to be misleading. So if that's the only thing you listen to, then no, you're not going to get educated on what that candidate can actually do. Everybody's voting record is public knowledge. I mean, you, like I said, you cleared it up. Yeah, we know folks not going to study. People not nosy as we are. I look at it like that. Somebody that's not as nosy as I am. If I want to know something, I'm going to dig till I find it. So you do have people that are not going to do that. But how do we, in our community particularly, make sure that when folks are going to the polls, that they understand why they're going to the polls, that they understand what the candidates stand for, that they understand that each one of these elections is an important election, not just the one for president, that we do have to address each and every one of them. Now, we have a question from somebody that's watching, so I want to make sure we get that in. And she's asking, Marilyn is asking, what will happen when the VP certifies the vote? Does anyone understand how that works? Now, let me say that before we go into that question. It's about 5 minutes left in the show. If you all don't mind being a little bit longer tonight, then we can go ahead and stay a little bit longer and answer some questions and try to hit at the other 2 or 3 things on the list, and we can get it over with. But I want to really make sure that we hit as many things as we can tonight on the show. And if y'all don't mind going over a little bit longer, then I'm fine with that. Is that okay?
That's fine with me. So
Okay.
I just want to say one thing about before we get to the question about people and their ideas of voting.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Scott has more influence over what happens in my life than Donald Trump does.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So when people were mad because the police presence on Colonel Glenn was increased, that had nothing to do with your federal government. That is your local city government. It didn't even have to do with ASA and the state. That's your local government. Your local government has more influence over what happens in your life than your state government, your county government, and even your federal government. And I don't think people understand that. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been 6% of the Little Rock population voting in the mayoral race.
Wow.
But it's infuriating to see that people just don't understand. They don't know. And we try to tell them, they don't think you know what you're talking about.
I think that partially speaks to the messaging and how we frame it, right? So we're going to come to your answer to the question. It's in the framing. People don't think that their vote matters because we don't show them how their vote matters. There are races won by 4 votes. There are races lost by 100 votes in a district. And you're like, had this number happened, for example, we would have made history with Joyce Elliott had about 10 precincts in Little Rock turned up and voted for Joyce. It wouldn't have mattered what happened in White County. It wouldn't have mattered what happened in Saline and a couple of others. Had 10 precincts, predominantly Black precincts, shown up.
Mm-hmm.
But when you looked at the percentage of turnout at like 30% of registered voters in this district in a presidential election year, 36% in this one, 28 in that one, that's how we lost that seat. We had the opportunity to make history and send a dynamic individual and to help the Biden administration move forward in their agenda and move us in a different space. But we didn't have people in those districts understanding that their singular vote really has value and meaning. And we've got to do a better job at connecting that message. Let me show you how this candidate won. You don't like this candidate, what they're representing. Let me show you how this person won. So we got to do better in these spots, and we got to hit those communities and touch them. Okay, once the vice president, okay, the question?
What would happen when the vice president certifies the votes? Does anyone understand how that works?
So you're talking about the day before the inaugural or the day before the inaugural when they officially go ahead and they lock this thing down for the umpteenth and final time. As long as there's not a, I don't want to say protest, but for lack of a better term, there's not a dissension from a representative that is seconded by a senator. That's it. It's certified. It's locked down. We move on, which is normally what happens. Stamp, stamp, move on, signed on. We have inaugural. There is a, I don't want to say conspiracy. there is a lot of chatter whether or not the incoming representative from Alabama is going to file a dissent to certifying, and whether or not there is a senator that's willing to sign on. Therefore, if that were to happen, both chambers have to hear the reason of dissent. They go through the whole process. It, in essence, just slows it down. It ain't going to change nothing. So instead of them being done with the process in a couple of hours, it would probably drag that vice president certification out to an entire day, because then both chambers have to debate, come back, do all that mess. But ultimately, it'll get certified, and we will move forward with the peaceful transfer of power as scheduled.
Yes. We pray.
To God's ear.
We pray for peaceful.
Well, I mean, it's all in how you define peaceful.
Hey, I'm at that by any means necessary stage, man.
Right.
I mean, I'm at the point where I define peaceful as there's no military action against other U.S. military. That's what I see as peaceful. There's going to be probably some violence in the streets. I see that happening. But as far as, it's not going to stop the transfer of power.
Yeah.
And that's what's most important.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things that I've taken away from the election season this year is political parties are created and they die. The Whigs were created and they died. Some people would say they evolved into the Republican Party. But at this point, I do not see how the Republican Party continues to be a national party. Mm-hmm. They've jumped the shark. And that's a reference that we should all get. You know, Happy Days, when Fonzie jumped the shark, that's when the show was like, okay, they're done. But I think that the Republican Party has jumped the shark on this one. They've gone too far down that hole. I don't think there's any coming back from it. The thought leaders, the actual thinkers in the Republican Party are fleeing the party.
Yeah. I think at this point, going forward, you're going to see an actual split.
Yes.
I don't think there will be like you said, there's never going to be a uniform, and that's not the word I'm looking for. Unified, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. There's not going to be a unified party. I think going forward, you're going to see a split, because you have some that are very, I don't know what kind of thinking you want to call it. I don't know if I want to say it's independent thinking or whatever kind of thinking. You have some that have so far this way thinking, and then some are so far this way thinking. I don't think they're going to stay unified much longer. I think there'll be a split in that party, and you'll see the rise of maybe a new Republican Party. And that might be what they call themselves, the new Republican Party, but I think it's going to be some type of split. Democratic Party, unless there's some new blood, there's some new energy, there's some new something happening, I don't see it. Surviving is not the word I want to use, but yeah, kind of, sort of. I just don't see it ever being strong, because right now there's nobody. I mean, there's nobody that comes to mind that you say, okay, here's a strong Democratic candidate to do anything going forward. So I just see things are going to change, I think, coming this year and then some years to come. You're not going to see these two parties remain the same as they've been in the past. I don't see how it's been.
I disagree. I disagree. I think both parties continue. And I think the problem, once again, is how we narrowly think of the political parties. Mm-hmm. They've never been unified. They've never singularly been anything. They've always been a spectrum. For example, back in the Democratic dominance here in Arkansas, Blanche Lincoln wasn't really a Democrat. She was a moderate Republican who ran as a Democrat. It was a Democrat in theory. She wasn't really a Democrat when you really look at the record and all of that. There's a lot of candidates that do that. You use the big party DNR for structure, infrastructure, and support, right? It's not a unified ideology, and you're not going to see that. The Republican Party has been morphing since the Tea Party. kicked off a while ago. They're going to still operate as a Republican Party. There's too much money there. Candidates are still going to go before the rings of both parties because they need the infrastructure and the money. Now, their political individual platforms may be different. That's why you've got the progressive wing of the Democrats versus the moderates versus the centrists. None of that's going to change. So in the words of my dear grandmother, same soup warms over. There's going to always be this spectrum. They're going to unify when it best serves their interests. And they will run under which moniker will help them accomplish their goal. So the big D and the big R, they're not going anywhere. It's too much money, too much power, too much infrastructure in place.
That I can agree to. Okay, now, did politics? We got to talk about something good that happened this year. This has been the train wreck of the part that we've talked about. So let's make sure. And first of all, do y'all want to talk about the losses? Because we've been talking about a little bit of losses the whole time. Because I told y'all before the show started, I was sitting here reading a list of people that I say 2020 just took from us, that stole from us or that went away. And a couple of folks on the list, of course, I didn't know had passed away, and it just kind of got to me just a little bit. So really quick, we'll just talk about a couple of these folks. And I'm going to start with the one I told you that I was like, ain't nobody told me nothing. Ain't nobody told me my boy Debo had passed away. And it just kind of upset me just a little bit because that's my boy. In some kind of ways, I adopted some of Debo's procedures on how to deal with people.
Don't be snatching chains. Don't be snatching chains. And bites. Don't do that.
Snatch chains and knock you out. So I just, that was one of the ones that, just kind of got to me a little bit. And I think everybody probably was affected by Chadwick Boseman passing away. Because we got Black Panther, and then we got Wakanda Forever, and then he was gone. So I think that one, I think I've frozen y'all. So if y'all don't see me moving, that's what it is. Oh, there we go. My picture is delayed. But so we got Chadwick Boseman, and then oh my goodness. Okay, first of the year we said it started off with Kobe dying. Because Kobe passed in January 26th, him and his daughter. And then after that, it just got, I don't know, it just kind of went down here from there. Now, most people don't know that I am a country music person. I like country music. So I was a little upset about Charlie Pride. I remember kiss a woman good morning and do something when she get home. I can't remember the name of the song, but that was my jam.
Kiss an angel good morning.
Yeah, that was my jam there back in the day. Shoot. I'm a Charlie Pride fan, and there's Chadwick Boseman. I'm looking at pictures, y'all. Let's see. Somebody else was on that list, and I kind of went, well, oh my God, y'all, Kamala, Uganda Giant, and died. Ain't nobody told me nothing about that. Now, if you're a pro wrestling fan, everybody remembers Kamala.
You know what's funny? I used to think they were always at the Barton Coliseum wrestling, right? I used to think Mid-South wrestling was always at the Barton Coliseum. This was what, early 80s. I was like 7, 8 years old. I used to always think they were at the Barton Coliseum.
Dude,
we can go see Kamala right now.
Yes, that was the highlight, to go to wrestling at Barton Coliseum. Now, here's what's funny.
Cousin. First of all, you're not pronouncing it right. Let's be real.
No, he's Kamala, the Uganda Giant.
No. It ain't wrestling.
It's wrestling.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I need you to stop that. He is from the age of wrestling.
But I've been
Thank you.
See, I've always been different. I called it wrestling.
That's what you see today. That's what you see today on television. Back in the day, that was not pro wrestling.
But see, I've always called it wrestling. Wrestling.
I find that hard to believe, Wanda.
But I'm telling you, what's funny is this man's real name is James Harris. I'm done. I am so done. I'm done. This man ain't Kamala Uganda Giant. His name James Harris. So I'm done. That's that right there. Now I will tell you, when what is her name? My girl from Babs. That one hurt.
Oh yeah,
Natalie DeSalle.
Yeah. That one hurt.
Yeah.
Young person, colon cancer. I think hers was cancer too. Just
Colon
like
cancer.
Colon cancer. Yes.
Yep. And we lost John Lewis, and I think that was the bigger one,
Who?
probably for the world. John Lewis was.
Oh, yeah.
C.T. Vivian. He was a civil rights pioneer that worked with Dr. King.
Back to back.
Yep. And it was somebody else. There's a couple of folks on here. I was like, oh Lord, ain't nobody told me nothing about this one either. Y'all, this list is way too long. That's upsetting.
It's a long list.
Yes, it's a long list. I'm at number 43.
It's a long, hard.
David Dinkins died this year. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna start crying, so let me move on to the happy parts of it. Hey, Sister Tyson turned 96. So
you remember in 2019
we
were
got that.
all talking about how bad 2019 had been,
Yeah.
and how many people we had lost. Like, we had no idea what was right around the corner. You think about it. Here in the United States, 1 out of every 1,000 people have died this year.
Wow.
And that's only from the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost 331,000 or 330 plus thousand people from the coronavirus. That's 1 for every 1,000 people. That is insane.
That is insane.
That is.
That's insane.
So, Wonder, I just wanted to point out that dear Cicely Tyson is a great woman of Delta. That's why I did that. She's one of my sorors.
I got it what you did. Now this other one, y'all. Wop bop a loo bop a wop bop boom. Tutti frutti.
There'll never be another Little Richard. It's not even possible to be there ever to be another Little Richard. There were so many historic figures that can never be replicated ever. He was the originator
My boy
of rock and roll.
Never gave me nothing.
Nothing.
But they never gave me nothing. I'm the first originator.
Yes.
I didn't know Andre Harrell had died.
Yes. I don't know how you missed that one. Yes.
I don't know. Sometimes I told you, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I literally avoided the news for a couple of months this year. I just couldn't handle it anymore. It was too much. I didn't want to. I don't do the daily updates with the governor anymore. I cannot handle hearing those numbers. So it's way too much. And I got to a point where I am a feeler, and that just means that I literally feel everything.
Empath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was getting too much, and I was crying too much. So it's a lot of stuff I wouldn't even watch the news. I watch movies. I'd avoid watching anything going on because I just couldn't handle it anymore. It was too much. Oh Lord, y'all, Miss Minnie died. Miss Minnie is the little lady from reality TV. You know Miss Minnie, the little lady. I can't see. That's why when you don't pay attention to stuff, I didn't know Miss Minnie had died. Oh Lord. Okay, I'm quit watching this, y'all. That's enough.
I'm going to say, on a positive note,
that's enough.
In thinking about how we think about quality of life and quality of place, people are starting to reconsider where they live in this country, right? And that has major ramifications. So you're starting to see, even here in Arkansas, people migrating from the major cities to middle America. I think that's a very positive thing. I think it's a win-win for both. Number one, their quality of life is improved greatly because I can't imagine paying $3,000 and $4,000 for every square foot to live somewhere and then spend 2.5 hours driving each way every day to try to work a job. Your quality of life and health and all other things are really diminished. But coming into the middle of the country, I think that it provides us with an opportunity to have new and fresh ideas. It gives them a better quality of life, and it helps all of us grow. So I see that as a very positive emerging thing, because with the advances in technology, we're learning that we don't necessarily have to go to the office building. Now, there's a whole nother negative in the banking world of what's going to happen to all this commercial real estate. That's another story. But people reevaluating what's important and that quality of life and quality of place. I think that's a very positive opportunity, that we have some very positive advances in technology, and hopefully that will continue. Interest rates. If you own a home right now, and if you finance that home outside the last 5 years, if you have not pursued refinancing or buying your first home right now, you got about till May. Interest rates are sub 3%, 30-year fixed. That is unheard of.
Yep.
So that is a very positive in the blues of this economy that we have going on right now. If you can take advantage of these lower rates, now is the time to do it. That will put more money back in your pocket. And I mean, that is a game changer from an asset building perspective, with the interest rates being the rates that they are. I think that is a very positive. Everyone's not doing bad right now in this economy. So those bright spots in the economy, I think those will continue to thrive, and additional new industries will be created, and new businesses will continue to be started. I think those are some very positive things.
You know, another thing, Martie, about people moving away from the coast, away from the cities, towards more rural America, middle America, is there's a influx of new ideas in these places. And it allows for areas that were being heavily gentrified to start to revert back to what they once were. You look at Washington, D.C., for instance, right? Like, Black people had been priced out of Washington, D.C. So real estate investors aren't going to be able to maintain those prices when there aren't people who are willing to pay it.
Right.
So some prices are going to have to change. And as far as bankers and commercial real estate, they'll figure out something to do with it. I have confidence in them.
We just don't want to have another economic bubble like we did with housing, because it would be far more devastating in commercial real estate than the housing bubble that we had in 07, 09. Just FYI, you don't want to see the commercial real estate market collapse.
No, I totally get it. But I think, I don't, how we got to where we were, that everyone needs to be in the office 5 days a week and everybody needs to be in the office, when we were clearly doing work that we could easily do from home. I just think there was a lag in catching up with what technology was, right? With the advent of the internet and high-speed internet, a lot of things that we were doing in the office could be done from remote locations. You even see states now that are paying people to move to their state and work remotely in another state. I think it was Vermont. They were offering people $10,000 to move to Vermont and work remotely.
We're doing that here in Arkansas. It's $10,000 and a bike. Don't know if you knew that. It's $10,000 and a bike. Yes.
I already live here though.
Yes, it's $10,000 and a bike. Tulsa's been doing this successfully for quite some time. $10,000 in Arkansas. ASA recently upped the ante and added a bike. I had some friends of mine in DC who were like, man, we're going to have to start thinking about Arkansas. And I was like, well, your wife ain't never leaving DC. But, and I've some other people I know that moved from Boston to Northwest Arkansas because of quality of life. And they only had to be in Boston a couple of times a year, and everything else they could do remotely. So Arkansas is $10,000 and a bike.
Okay. You lost me with the bike. I'm like, okay.
The nature trails. We've spent so much money statewide in investing in the nature trails and biking trails and connecting them. So, that's big business in that space. And so the individuals who like biking and hiking and all of that for the natural state, connecting all of those type of components together. So for those individuals, this is a, hey, come to Arkansas. We got something for you.
That is interesting.
That is
All right,
interesting.
Doc, it's about 8 something, 8:20. And I don't want to hold y'all all night because I still have to eat dinner. And I'm really hungry. So
You said you had some other questions.
I do. Well, let's see. Oh, well, let's talk about the accomplishments because there were some big ones this year. We have our first. Okay, no. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let you say it because I want you to say it how you're going to say it. Marty, you get to announce this one. What's Kamala Harris?
Kamala Harris is the first Black and South Asian cisgender female vice president.
See, I knew you were gonna break it down like that. That's what I'm not saying. I want her to say it because if I say it, you're gonna correct me. So I'll let you say it.
Marty, may I ask why you added cisgender in?
Exactly.
So I think the only reason I had thrown that in there is because of the work I do with system critical in the space and education
And
that I do
assuming that
around.
cisgender is the norm. Is that why you added it?
No, because for example, we made a big deal over when Pete Buttigieg was running. He would have been the first homosexual or same gender loving individual running for such an office. So I just threw that in there. But normally when I identify myself in my system critical unconscious bias work, I always, in the list of ways I describe myself, I put in cisgender and then ask people, do they know what that means? And then give context. And then I have a whole thing around the numerous genders and sexual identities that exist. It's a spectrum.
So that's another show. You're going to have to come back and we're going to have a whole conversation because you just lost me and probably about half of
no, I looked it up while she was talking.
But
I kind of got what it means, but I really seriously do want to have a show about that. So we definitely will come back and talk about that. But I wanted you to say what it was because I know if I said it, you was like, wait a minute. I totally So anyway, we said Kamala Harris, and then we gotta give props to Stacey Abrams.
Yes.
Man, Stacey Abrams is on fire. So we had some women here this year, and not just women, but men, women. We had some really good stuff to happen this year. So let's talk about some of those accomplishments, things that, because I told y'all I stopped watching the news, so it might be some things y'all know about that I don't. But let's really quick kind of talk about what are some of the accomplishments for 2020.
I don't know that this would necessarily qualify as an accomplishment, other than the fact that it was recognized, is that the countries that actually fared the best with COVID-19 were countries that were run by women. Now, I mean, the fact that it was recognized wasn't an accomplishment.
That is an accomplishment. That is something to be recognized and to be celebrated because that just shows you. Now, Brian, nothing against you, babe. But
no,
you know,
let me just say this. I've known for a while that countries that are led by women or have women represented in a representative proportion tend to have more well-working governments than the opposite, right? You look at it, women, Angela Merkel in Germany and the president or prime minister of New Zealand. You look at when Great Britain was run by Margaret Thatcher. I mean, these governments worked better than the opposite. And I think a lot of that, and this is just speculative on my part, but I don't think there's as much ego involved when women are in positions of power versus when men are in positions of power. I think that women tend to listen better and they don't think they have all the answers. And that's just anecdotal, me on the outside looking in, looking at some things and reading some stuff. And that's just, what I think. So I'm not surprised by that fact at all. Doesn't surprise me.
That was a good man answer. That was a good man answer. Oh, I know what I want to talk to you about. And this one, y'all, tear it however you want to. And I call it the rise of the Karens.
Oh.
This year. I don't know if COVID made folks just crazy. I don't know. But we saw Karen after Karen after Karen. And there's a recent one, the young lady who accused the little boy stealing her phone. It's been a couple of days. The jazz player, I can't remember his name. I read his article, I watched that video today. And I'm going.
Wonder, I think that's all a part of the same thing that we've been seeing with people feeling emboldened to do and say whatever they want to at this point. I don't think the rise of the Karen is any different than the Proud Boys or Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter. I think that's all a part of the same tree.
Brian, I am surprised at you, our dear historian. Once again, this ain't nothing new. Karen existed in Emmett Till. Karen's always been among us.
What I'm saying, but no, listen, I understand that. What I'm saying is that it's all a part of the same thing. People now, today, in the last 4 years, feel emboldened to do and say things that they wouldn't have done 6 or 8 years ago.
I'm saying the Karens would have done that before. The difference is we have smartphones.
Exactly.
I think
now. That's it.
That's it.
I think that the smartphone is helps to reveal it, but I think that there's been an increase, and I think that increase has been made viable by the magnification that 45 has put out there. I mean, and so people are emboldened to do what leadership does, and respects, and so I think there's been an increase in it. I really think that there's been an increase,
and that's what I was saying without saying it.
Yeah.
When you think
so,
about
yes, the tone in the country has devolved over the last more than 4 years, because he'd been on this campaign during the Obama administration.
Well, I mean, you know what? It's somebody asked. I got into a conversation with somebody on Facebook, and they were talking about the political discourse in the country, and I said, up until 12 years ago, the Congress was working under regular order. A bill was brought up, we debated it, but at some point, and this is what I said to the person, I was like, something happened in 2008 which changed everything, right? And I will leave it up to you to decide what happened in 2008. But something happened in 2008 that the Congress stopped operating on regular order. Politicians started openly saying the quiet things, like, my goal is to make this person a one-term president. They started operating on, well, if the majority of my caucus doesn't vote for this bill, then it's not coming to the floor. Those things started happening. Positions or Supreme Court openings stopped becoming filled when they were opened, and they were filled by the next incoming president. So something happened in 2008 that changed everything. And that's kind of an issue.
If we really started thinking about Karens, and like you said, we had a Karen for Emmett Till. There was a Karen for Rosewood. There was a Karen, you name it. There's been Karens around for a long time. Karen just was not recorded, and Karen wasn't put on Facebook, and Karen was put on other social media, and we didn't get to see Karen do her dirt right when she did. you heard about it or you used to read about it. And even back then, when you read about it, it was written in such a way that made Karen the victim, always the damsel in distress. Karen was being rescued because that was the narrative. That was the way, things work. Now you see Karen just losing her stuff over just losing her stuff. And I'm going, you would think that as many people have lost their jobs, you've lost your livelihood, you've lost your place to live, you've lost public respect if you ever had any, but you've lost all these things. But every day there's a new freaking Karen. I'm like, come on, do y'all not get on the phone call and tell everybody to cool down and do something different? It's like everybody, they don't get it. You see,
that's not how privilege works. That's
yeah,
not
right.
you kind of want to think that one person gets smart enough to send the email out and say, look, y'all, we got to chill.
You would think after Central Park, Karen, right?
Yeah.
Who knew? That was, to me, one of the worst examples of a Karen. She knew the historical context and was tapping all into that thing, right? All of it, right? The power of victimhood that she could lean into and deploy at her beck and call. That hadn't gone away.
Oh, if you have,
and not only has it not gone away, it just mutates in different ways. I mean, when we start talking about issues around race, we got excuse the expression, we got the white girl tears that start to flow that just totally changes the direction of the conversation, because now, rather than dealing with issue, we're having to calm down the white girl because she's crying over what's going on. So it's not, and I don't mean that meanly, but it happens time and time and time again.
It's documented.
Huh?
It's documented. There's books on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you watch the Barbecue Becky video, remember Barbecue Becky? Watch that whole video. How long she stood there just to do, and then at the end of it, she started crying. What in the world just happened? I literally sat there and watched that entire video because I wanted to get some kind of explanation. What was she thinking? And in the end, she breaks down and cries. And in the end, it's, oh my God, now I'm the victim. How? You just victimized these folks, and they were not even bothering you. They weren't breaking the law, and it wasn't your business. You're not the police. So if you watch some of these videos and you actually, I'm one of those folks that'll watch it 10 times just to study every single move that was made. Because I'm trying to figure out at what point did you think it was your business to, number one, accuse somebody, number two, attack them, put your hands on somebody. And I look at it and I say, Lord, these people practice restraint that I'm not sure I have. Because if you touch me, it's going to be a different situation. And in some of these videos, the fact that people haven't been hurt, people haven't been sent to the hospital, the ambulance hadn't been called. I'm telling you, it's some strong folks out there who are just you holding it in. Because you're knowing all the time that if you go to the extent that you really feel like going,
you're going to jail.
It's going to turn out
or
bad.
end up dead.
I go to jail. It's the dead part I don't want.
Right.
Yeah, it's the dead part for me. I don't want the dead part. So
and you don't know. You don't know. So I think the shock of it all has a delayed effect because, as you pointed out, we're all walking around with a certain level of trauma. I always say to be Black in America and before 2020 was to live with a certain level of trauma anyway. And so you add this in here, and then we've been watching on television repeatedly video cameras, police cams, this, that, and the other of Black people being executed. Right? So you have these encounters with Becky, Karen, or Susan. And you don't know what to do, right? Because in that moment, how you react could determine life or death for you.
Exactly.
So I think that's why you don't see as much reaction, is because now the trauma of everything, you go into a frozen state, because to do anything could be held against you.
Yeah.
And could ultimately, I mean, just the gentleman in Columbus, Ohio, really? He's holding a cell phone lawfully at the house. I want to know who called the police.
Wait a
I
minute.
want to know who's calling the police. Oh, you haven't seen that one on tape.
Which one?
In Columbus, Ohio, a couple of days ago, the father who was out in the garage of his daughter's home, and the police come up, and he's holding a cell phone in one hand, and of course the police shoots and fires to kill. He had turned his camera off, but the cameras start recording a minute before certain activities. He forgot a couple of things, and the audio continued. He rendered absolutely no aid, and you could hear the man dying on the ground. They did nothing, and he only had a cell phone, and he was lawfully there at the house. It was his daughter's house. He was staying there. He shot to kill first, and then after the end of the recording, there's another police officer. He's like, well, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And the other police officer's like, don't worry about it. We got you.
Okay. I'm looking at CNN has a video.
It's disturbing.
The comments, I'm not going to watch it. I can't. I can't watch that. And the man's name was Gray Hill.
Yes. It is like, it's back to back to back to back. It's Blake, it's this, that. It has been a year of we've seen this. And so I think when you encounter a Becky, a Karen, or a Susan, I think your subconscious taps into recent headlines, and you don't want to be one of them.
Survival mode.
Correct. And survival mode is retract.
It's because you don't know how it's going to end up for you. And historically and lately, it has not ended well for us.
That is correct.
Yeah. So, y'all, I like I said, I won't watch that video. I stopped watching stuff, I think, back in, trying to think what happened earlier. I will not watch George Floyd tape, any of that stuff. I will not watch that. I won't watch. I just stopped watching a lot of things on TV now, which is weird because I'll be honest with y'all. The favorite thing in the world for me to watch is Law and Order, and to watch CSI, NCIS, Forensic Files. If it's a murder mystery show, I'm probably watching it, and I will watch them for hours at a time, and I can deal with that. But when I'm watching, and those are real cases, and I love cold case, and I watch all this stuff, unsolved mysteries, everything. And I can watch that, and it's removed. I know this sounds weird, but if I watch that video of that man I cannot handle that. My body, my mind won't let me process stuff like that anymore. So I stay away from those videos. Like I said, I stopped watching stuff way back in the summer because it just gets to be too much. Now, the fear of that for me is that people are becoming, we're already a desensitized nation. And I think we were already there because of the stuff we've seen on TV over the years anyway, and some of the stuff that you see in your own neighborhood, and some of the games that some of the kids play, and just everyday life. So we're desensitized to a certain amount of violence anyway. So for some people, a lot of things don't affect them because they've gotten to a place where it's like, oh, well, somebody else got killed, and they can go on and process it and move on. Well, I'm not one of those people. Even though I don't know you, I don't know your family, I don't know anything about the situation, just hearing about those videos or the mistaken times I've accidentally or I shouldn't have watched them, stuff like that kind of stays with me for a while. So I had to just stop watching it. I stopped, like I said, I don't listen to the daily reports on COVID anymore. That was making me crazy. I don't watch 45 is his updates no more, or not even updates anymore, they're just rants. So I stopped watching those. And it's like I have to put some distance between me and those things that's happening. And it doesn't mean that I don't care. It just means that mentally right now in this space where I'm working from home, I'm alone a lot of the time, I don't like having that as my thoughts. I can't handle those things being what I think about. So for me, it's best for me to focus on more positive things and not read the news sometimes. It's days where I've actually signed on to Facebook and got right back off because all the news feed stuff was just too much. And I don't process that well. And I think I've always been like this. And I think, not saying 2020 made it worse, but I think the things of this year have made it worse. So I just avoid, if I can help it, I try not to watch it, try not to hear it, because once I feel it, I keep feeling it. And it takes me a while before I can finally get it, just kind of get it out and get it processed. But anyway, y'all, how long we been talking? Lord Jesus.
We've been going a while.
Yeah, we at 8:40. I appreciate y'all so much. So I'm gonna ask you one last thing, and then we going to eat. I'm going to eat. I don't know what y'all going to do.
What you cook?
Some baked chicken. I'm trying to do better, Lord Jesus. I am. I really am. Some baked chicken and some rice and some green beans. Okay. That's all I made for tonight. That's really simple and it's quick. Everything went in the oven. So when I get out of here, it's already hot. What do you see? What's your prediction? Now this is getting out there far. And y'all go far as you want or less you want. What is your prediction for 2021? What do you see happening? What do you want to see happen? You can say it could be a personal goal. It could be something in the world. It could be whatever you want. But what do you see for 2021? Oh, y'all quiet. That's funny.
From a joke standpoint, there was a meme on Facebook that said, if you thought 2020 was crazy, wait till 2021 come and they're old enough to drink.
Yeah, I kind of be in for some surprises.
I don't have any predictions.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is that we as a people, as the human race, would see all of the things that happened in 2020 and become a softer, gentler, more humane group of people. That's my hope. I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to be able to move past our, for America in particular, past our rugged individualism to become a community that cares enough to be our brother's keeper, to fulfill the ideals of being the land of the free.
Yeah.
That's what I would love to see.
Wow.
That's a good one.
So I'm going to take this in a totally different direction.
I knew you would.
Y'all feel free to laugh along. Up first, I hope I'm successful online with the Dillard shoe sale coming up in a few days.
What?
After that, I'm hoping that I'm just being honest. After that, I'm hoping the Power Book series continues to get stronger and better. I'm looking forward to seeing the next Power Book featuring the story of Canaan. If you're not into the Power universe, I apologize. We're on Power Book Ghost now. Canaan's up next. Can't wait till they get to Tommy's story. I'm being so serious. I mean that. I'm hopeful that I will be able to run, I achieve my personal goal of running a 10K at the Little Rock Marathon in under an hour. And you're like, why is she notating such trivial things? Because so many things are so outside of my realm of influence and knowledge that my little brain is only going to focus on the things that I can possibly enjoy and that I can possibly work towards. I'm also looking forward to This Is Us coming back. Love that show. And I hate to say this, I also look forward to tormenting Dallas Cowboy fans. Hopefully all of 2021, it brings me great joy to do that. I hope my System Critical company continues to be contracted to do the DEI work and that I have been blessed to do thus far. And so, and to stay healthy, somewhat sane, and that, my family is secure. That's it. I can't even go deeper than that. That's it.
Well, I gotta say both of y'all, amen and amen. That's good. Brian, what
I hear you, Brian.
Brian, are you muted?
we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. What happened? No. Did you turn your mic down? Can't hear you. Oh. Keep talking. Can you say something? No, let's take it here. You got to draw it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. Somehow my mic switched to a different setting. But like Martie, I am excited about 2021 because Disney has announced 10 new Star Wars projects, and I can't wait to see those. I am also excited for This Is Us to come back. And I'm looking forward to having dinner at a restaurant again. Those are the things that I'm looking for. I'm not trying to run a 10K, but I am thinking about starting a history consulting company in 2021. So Martie, I may be calling on you for some of your expertise in starting that. But those are the things that I'm looking at doing in 2021. I'm really excited to turn the page on 2020 and just see what 2021 has to offer. We thought 2019 was bad, but 2021 said, wait. 2020 said, hold my beer. So I'm just excited that as of now, 2 days out, my family has made it through healthy. We've had a few scares, but everybody is still, yet, as my grandma would say, I'm yet still holding on. So, yeah, that's what's been good. Oh, and also the museum, we're under construction, so that's exciting. So.
Well, I think for me, it is 2021 improved health. I've had health issues pretty much since March of this year. No COVID, but y'all know I have a form of arthritis that is irritating as crap, the best way to put it. So I've been literally in pain for the last couple of months. And I'm hoping that going forward, my health gets better. So that's out of the way and I can get up and do the things I want to do. I do want my show to grow. I have a podcast, and the podcast will be for women 50 and older, actually for 45 and older. And it's just talking about the second half of life and how once those babies are grown and everybody's out of the house and you're an empty nester, now it's time for us to live. So we'll be talking about life after these babies. These babies get grown and things that we can do as mature women. I'll also have a little boutique that'll be opening online. So I'm working on that stuff now. I'm also working on some online classes. So a lot of online business starting and getting those things off the ground. I'm looking for upper six figures this year. That's where I want to be. I want to start 21 and end it with some upper six figure money. And if it gets to be 7, I call y'all and we're going to party. I'm just going to be honest with you. We're going to party if it hits 7. But I'm definitely looking to get into upper six figures by the end of 21. I want to make sure I'm like everybody else. I want my family to be safe, all of them, here, far, near, no. And I tell you something. I'm one of those. I pray for family and I pray for known and unknown. And most people go, "How do you do that?" I don't know who all my family is.
Right.
I pray for known and unknown. Whether you're near or far, I know you. I don't know you. I pray for everybody that all of us grow. And I told you at the beginning of the show that my word for next year is growth. All I'm looking for is growth in every area of my life, from my spirituality to my pockets. I don't want this body to grow none. So we got to get this body back under control. I will not be running the 10K races now with these feet. These feet, no, ain't gonna happen. They ain't gonna probably happen. But I do want to get healthy enough just to walk around. Y'all would be amazed at how much difference it makes when you can literally just get up and walk around. And I've had issues for the last couple of months. So just want to be healthy, want everybody else to be healthy. I want to help as many people as I can in 21. If we all want to get to 6 figures or 7 or 8 or however many numbers you want to get to, I want to help as many as I can get there also. But I just want us to be happy. And Dr. LaToison and I go with you on that one. I want us to be a nation, a unified nation. I want us to be a unified community. And for us, that has to start in our families.
Yes.
So if there's some animosity, if there's some issues, fix it. All I can say is fix it, Jesus, because this year has shown, if nothing else, hey, you might be here today, but it does not mean you will be tomorrow. And we're always running still like it's running, with everything happening like it's happening. We don't know when our last time is going to be to tell somebody you love them and that you care about them. So incidentally, while I'm talking to y'all, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thank you to every guest that's been on my show. I think we're going into 21 will be 3 years. In June will be 3 years. So for these 2.5, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody that watches. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for everything. This is one of those things I told y'all started as my 50 for 50. When I turned 50 in whenever I turned 50. See, that's when you know you forgot how old you are. I turned 50 whenever I turned 50. Oh, I turned 50 in 2018. I was like, when did I turn 50? Well, I'm 52 now. But this is one of my things on my 50 for 50 list that I wanted to do. I wanted to have a show. And, I started off on the radio, and then when COVID hit, we just kind of transitioned to being online, and it's been wonderful because I've been able to still keep going on and keep having good guests and keep having good shows. And I just am very appreciative of all the support and everybody that's been helping me do that. So thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Might be a little something in the Christmas stocking for y'all next year. Y'all wait a whole year. But it might be something extra for you because you all stuck in the night and staying on, and I sure do appreciate it. The conversation has been amazing. And y'all know we didn't even scrape a little bit off of 2020 because there's so many more things that we could talk about. And probably the first of the year, we'll do some more review. But thank you all so much. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. God bless each one of you. I hope that everything that you're praying for, that you're hoping for the new year comes true. And that that you're just happy. I love to see people smile, and I'm happiest when I see other people smile. And right now, y'all gonna make me start crying. But no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this tonight. I enjoyed it. So I'm hoping that everybody that watches, and I'll boost the video, and hopefully some other folks will watch and be like, "Oh my God, it was so wonderful." But anyway, love you guys. Y'all want to say anything before we go, or y'all good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the platform.
Yes.
Thank you. That's my
love.
So
love you, my Facebook cousin.
Yeah, all right. Brian thought we were cousins for real.
Oh,
I did.
We just claim each other, in the big.
Hey, I like I tell people all the time, I know what I know. I know history. Now the rest of it, some things I don't know a lot about, but I know history.
Well,
I said my cousin on my Facebook side.
Oh, okay.
He my adopted cousin now too. So was Miss Barbara.
I still hadn't made the 300, so
I still love you, Brian. I still love you, Brian.
We all kinfolks now. So, but thank y'all so much. I appreciate you all for staying on tonight. Thank you for whoever's watching. Again, if you haven't liked us yet on Facebook, go over and find the Ladies Lounge with Wonder Lowe. Like the page. Go ahead and subscribe on our YouTube channel. One of the things I want to do this year is make sure that YouTube channel takes off and grows too. So make sure you go over and hit the subscribe button and hit that bell so you can get notifications when new videos drop. So I'm going to say thank you and good night. Happy holidays. Jumanji, because you told me not to say that other thing. So I'm not going to say the other thing. So we're gonna say Jumanji. And everybody knows what that means, Jumanji.
Jumanji.
So y'all have a good night. Love y'all. Take care. See you next year because we got to do this again.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Don't know where to
Where to look.